In this section, we're going to be solving radical expressions. Sorry, equations. So when we look at the first problem, we're going to have x squared equals to 10. Now we have to think of the x squared. Now how do we get rid of an x squared? By squaring. So what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So when we square x squared, that cancels. So all we have left over is x. And what is 10 squared? 100. Now let's look at problem number 2. In problem number 2, we have the square root of x minus 2, which equals 6. Once again, we're trying to get rid of the square, so we square both sides. Once we do that, that gets rid of, and we have x minus 2 equals to 6 squared, which is 36. In order to solve for x, I need to get rid of the negative 2, so I must add 2 to both sides. And 36 plus 2 equals to 38. For number 3, we have 5 equals x plus 3. Now even though the square root is on the opposite side, it's the same process. We have to square both sides. Once we do that, we get rid of that, and we have 5 squared, which is 25, and then this just becomes x plus 3. We have to subtract 3 from both sides, so we go ahead and do that, and we get that 25 minus 3 is 22. Problem number 4. Is this. I'll give you a second to copy it down. Before we're able to square a square root, we need to make sure it's by itself. So what we need to get rid of right now is that negative 8. How do we get rid of that negative 8? By adding 8 to both sides. Now negative 3 plus 8 becomes a positive 5. Everything else stays the same. So we have to square both sides because of the square root, which already shows it there. And once we do that, we're going to have 5x minus 5 equals to 25. Then I have to add 5. And 25 plus 5 is 30. So we're trying to solve for 5 for x here, so we have to get rid of the 5 by dividing, and we find out that x is 30. Moving on to example number 5. So we need to understand that this is being multiplied right there. So we need to get rid of that negative 10. The way you would get rid of that negative 10 is by dividing the negative 60. Make sure we change that to a 60 because I had not gone all the way. Negative 60 divided by negative 10. Now negative 60 divided by negative 10 is 6. So we have the square root of x minus 10 equals to 6. In order to get rid of the square root, I have to square both sides. So then that gives us x minus 10 equals to 36. And then we have to get rid of the negative 10, so we must add 10 to both sides. And we find out that x is 46. Moving on to problem number 6. So in this one we have a square root on both sides. There's nothing outside, so we go ahead and take care of squaring both sides. Once we do that, both square roots are gone. So we just end up with 2x minus 88 equals 2x over 6. Now we're trying to solve for x, so the first thing I need to get rid of is my denominator, which is this right here. How do you get rid of that 6? By multiplying both sides by 6. Once you do that, this side cancels, but we have to multiply everything on the left side. So 6 times 2x is 12x, and 6 times 88 would be minus 528. And of course, the only thing you have left over on the right side would be the x. So we're trying to solve for x, so we need to move x's to one side. So we have to move that positive 12x to the other side, which means we need to subtract 12x. Once we do that, I end up with a negative 528 equals to a negative 11x, because this is 1 minus 12. We have to divide both sides by 11, so let me just rewrite it over here really quick. We do divide both sides by negative 11, and we get that x is a positive 48. Moving on to problem 7. Square root of x minus 7 equals the square root of 11 minus x. Once again, square both sides. Woot woot. So both square roots cancel. So we just have x minus 7 equals 11 minus x. Solve for x. As we solve for x, variables to one side, numbers to the other. So we add x, and that gives me 2x minus 7 equals to 11. I must move that minus 7 by adding 7. So 7 plus 11 equals 18. We divide both sides by 2, and I find out that x is 9. 3 more examples, and we are done. Número 8. X equals negative 1 minus 2x. Same thing. Get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So we have x squared equals negative 1 minus 2x, because the square root cancels. Because the last few problems you end up with the x squared, you have to move everything to the side where your x squared has to stay positive. So I must add 1. So that gives me x squared plus 1 equals negative 2x. And I must add the 2x. So that gives me x squared plus 1 plus 2x plus 1 equals to 0. So this goes back to stuff that we've gone over before, making a little table. Two numbers that multiply to 1 and add up to 2 with just 1 and 1. So we have x plus 1 and x plus 1. But you said each one equal to 0, so then I get x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 1. So moving on to problem number 9. So in problem number 9, we just have x minus 5 equals to the square root of x plus 1. We have to square both sides, so we need to put the left side inside of parentheses. Now keep in mind, when you see something like this, that means I have to write that down twice. X minus 5 equals, on the right side the square root cancels, so it's just an x plus 1. We have to do FOIL, so x times x would be x squared. X times a negative 5 would be negative 5x. Negative 5 times x would be negative 5x, and the negative 5 times a negative 5 would be positive 25. But don't forget to rewrite what's on the right side, x plus 1. We combine like terms, which are those two. So I get x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals x plus 1. We have to move everything to the left side to keep our x squared positive. So I must subtract x and also subtract 1. So I'm moving both of them in the same step. So here these cancel. So I end up with x squared minus 11x plus 24. So we're looking for factors of 24 that add up to negative 11. So 124 2, 12, 3, 8, or 4, 6. The 24 is positive, so they're either both positives or both negatives. Your middle number is negative, meaning that they both have to be negatives. So who gives me the negative 11? Minus 3 and a minus 8. So I have x minus 3, x minus 8, set each one equal to 0. So I end up with x equals to positive 3 and x equals to a positive 8. So each of your problems on your worksheet corresponds to exactly each problem on this video or on your spiral, because you should be writing this in your notes. The last problem, problem number 10, square root of x minus 54 minus x, that minus x is outside, equals to a negative 6. Well, in order to get rid of the square root, I must move that negative x over by adding x's to both sides. So I end up with the square root of 7x minus 54 equals x minus 6. In order to get rid of the square root, we're doing the same thing as in number 9, squaring both sides. Put that x minus 6 in parentheses. So we square that. So that becomes 7x minus 54. Have to rewrite x minus 6 twice. We do FOIL. Rewrite the left side first. And then x times x squared. X times negative 6, negative 6x. Negative 6 times x, negative 6x. Negative 6 times the negative 6, plus 36. We rewrite the left side, combine these two in the middle, which gives me a negative 12x. The 36 comes down. I need to move everything, the 7x and the 54 to the right to keep your x squared positive. So I must subtract 7x, but also add 54. When I do that, I end up with x squared. Negative 12 and a negative 7 becomes a 19x. 36 and 54 become a 90. So I have to look for two numbers that multiply, and I'm going to do it up here. Two numbers that multiply to 90 and add up to a negative 19. So 190, 245, 330. I'm not sure, but 9 and 10. I don't know if there's anything else in between. So 90 is positive, 19 is negative, so they both have to be negative, so it gives you a negative 19, negative 9 and 10. So then this becomes x minus 9 and x minus 10, set each one equal to 0, and of course I would get x equals a positive 9 and x equals a positive 10. So make sure that you guys work on the 10 problems in the worksheet. Show every step, no shortcuts, and make sure you turn in the work as soon as you're done. Have a great weekend.